Geek Out! Hey, welcome to another installment of Catching Up. I'm Sam.
I'm Chris.
And this week we've got an interview with Ivan Brandon. He's talking his new book, Black Cloud, which is he co-writes with Jason Latour, art by Greg Hinkle and Matt Wilson on colors. It's out in comic book shops now, so you have no excuse. Go check it out. But, let's have Ivan talk about it. And joining us this week, we have Ivan Brandon. He's written Drifter for Image Comics, Viking for Image Comics over on the DC side of things. He's written Men at War. He's written Wolverine over for Marvel. And he's writing this new Image Comics series, Black Cloud, which debuts in comic book stores everywhere and on Comixology on Wednesday, April 5th. Ivan, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So, kind of a reoccurring thing in a lot of your stories. I mean, Drifter's full of them, of course, Viking. But there's always... And, of course, in Black Cloud, there's always this misfit character in the form of Zelda that always doesn't seem to kind of go with society, that they're always kind of bucking against society's constraints, or they don't quite feel like they belong. I guess this is kind of a big, nebulous question, but what kind of attracts you to writing those kind of characters?
That's a good question. I don't know that I'm even that conscious of it. I think that often it's something that I find compelling. It's definitely something that's true to a lot of my experiences, and it's just something that I find the idea of sort of reality not necessarily lining up perfectly with ambition compelling, and I find the idea of just folks not being able to. Just other folks wanting more for themselves or having some unrealistic expectation of what they're going to be or what they should be, and just becoming their own worst enemy in that regard. Just creating even intellectual obstacles for themselves, things that things that they can't really live up to, and not even up to is not even a great phrase, because I don't even think it's a qualitative question so much as I think that people have, people buck against a lot of things in their own head, and also just sort of societally. I think there are a lot of weird practices in society that I think we are accustomed to, but often along the way, instinctually we sort of buck against them because we think they're weird, because a lot of the stuff that we do culturally doesn't really make sense if you look too closely at it. So I don't know. It's just, to me, it's a natural, it's just, it's less an intentional thing. And I think it's just a natural progression of how my brain works, and how I think an interesting thing that I think a lot of people tend to go through.
Kind of the idea of the true self against the idealized self.
Yeah. I mean, Viking was a lot about that, quite a bit, because Viking was to some degree about just sort of growing up within the mythology of the Viking, and just what the Viking conqueror was supposed to be, and what's it like to be a kid in that world, and growing up in that, and what does that sort of lead you to, and what and what are the consequences of that?
Mm-hmm. Now, I mean, Zelda's coming from a literal place of dreams, and yet she still, there's that, obviously she's since run away. She's, panhandling on the streets of New York City. Mm-hmm. Is that really just a case of, like, the grass is always greener for her? Like, she, even in this idealized environment, she just kind of grew sick of it and dreamed of something, maybe not necessarily, like you were saying, not necessarily something better, but something different?
Yeah, I think, in that case, it's not. She definitely doesn't run to New York as an upgrade. She creates an untenable situation for herself where she's from, and within the lines of what we're talking about, she has these sort of grand ambitions of what she thinks. Just like any kid, just like when I started in comics or in high school or whatever else, that you just think everybody's an idiot and you can do everything better. And she's an immensely powerful person. And her, sort of dumb young rebellion has much more drastic consequences than sort of what you and I would accomplish. And and yeah, she creates a situation that makes life in her world untenable, and just ends up stuck outside. And then the contrast of that, which is very appropriate for New York, is that she's a person who's very immensely powerful and immensely beloved and has everything she could possibly want where she's from, but she's not from our world. She doesn't have our skill set. She doesn't have a social security number. So she doesn't have any of the talents or any talents at all relative to the human New York world. So she's sort of stuck, a fish out of water, so to speak, and stuck trying to figure out how she can, what angles she can work, because she just has no marketable skills otherwise.
Right. Though, I mean, she even, you kind of allude to it without going into too much detail in that first issue. She does have this kind of reputation back home. She's not, when she goes into a certain location, she's not welcome.
She's not welcome, but she's also very welcome depending on who's looking at her. Like she is. My analogy for Zelda is she's that guy who is a lot of fun at the bar and very funny and just will show you the time of your life, but you don't want to lend him any money and you don't want to leave him alone with your girlfriend.
Been there. On both sides of that equation, but well, given the flapper culture that we kind of see in Zelda, back at Zelda's home realm, is her namesake Zelda Fitzgerald?
No, and I should clarify because I think it'll become clearer as you go through the rest of the series. But the environment that you see in the first issue is actually just one little area, and it's the parameters are very specific to the guy who runs the place, and he's very particular about how he wants the place to look, and how he wants people to dress and how he wants them to behave. So as you get out of that area, you'll see that the world she's from has any number of different environments that just literally anything you can imagine, or anything we can imagine, I guess, in this case. But yeah, so that's not a template necessarily for everything you're going to see in that world. It'll drastically shift depending on where exactly we are in the world.
Kind of, I guess, yeah. With working with dreams, you've got infinite diversity and infinite combinations.
Yeah. I mean, one of the crazier things is when you get to see sort of there's a bit of almost a council of elders kind of thing, and when you see just what that room looks like, it'll really give you a sense of just the vast gamut of different conduits that feed ideas and into her world.
I have to say, I feel like this is perhaps the most fantastical story of yours that I've read. I mean, Drifter, even though it's a sci-fi, it's very much set. It's a sci-fi western. Like, there's very real world elements there, and even your DC work with Men at War, it was just regular guys that just happened to be caught, staring down like these superpowered gods. How did Black Cloud all kind of come about?
Yeah, well, my older stuff, there are some hidden crazy things in the middle there, but I do also try to, I just, because it's the only way my brain works, is I do try to, even when I go wilder, I do try to ground things, because I think, I never want to make science fiction that's about the laser gun. I want to make things that are recognizable, in terms of experiences and in terms of just something you can connect with as not too abstract. But yeah, it's Black Cloud was myself and Jason Latour. We spent a lot of time together, and a few years ago we were spending a more than usual even amount of time together overseas and et cetera. And I think one night we just it's funny because we just had this conversation yesterday and we couldn't come up with a definitive answer, but we just had these long drunken conversations, and there was something about us talking about the idea of just sort of how images don't necessarily, the idea of what things look like versus what they are, and we just got this really vague idea about the reflection of a city that we just sort of caught it in our teeth and ran with it, and next thing we were a few years later, and we haven't been able to let it go, and we ended up teaming up with Greg, who had just finished Airboy, and is obviously a ridiculously phenomenal talent, especially considering the guy's only done like one book, um, and pounced on him immediately. And luckily enough, he's early enough in his career not to know better. So we ended up, and Matt, I have a long, long history with Matt Wilson since, I mean, literally his first. I think I was involved in like his very first job actually, um, and uh, and it just the team just sort of worked together. Everybody has very different perspectives and strengths, and I think it makes for it's sort of weirdly. I hate to bring in all the sort of comics analogies to everything, but it sort of is a nice analogy for the book because it's about different opinions and different ideas coming together to form a consensus. And yeah, the team is just phenomenal across the board. We are that's sort of beyond drunken Jason and I taking notes. Once Greg actually starts drawing, that drastically changes our vision of the book and our inclinations and from that point, the story, even though we had a lot of the broad strokes nailed down, the story definitely took some turns just to play to what we wanted to see Greg draw.
Yeah, I mean, and when we've had Jason on the show before a couple months ago, and he was talking about loose ends, and we brought up Black Cloud as well. But both you and Jason come from an art background, so how has that kind of informed your writing process and working with other artists?
It's interesting because Jason is obviously more so because he's much more actively involved with art. But Jason, what I hope, and I obviously had a lot of phenomenal luck in working with really incredible people. I think hopefully I have a little bit more of a range in terms of being able to speak visually to people. Because I know, I have a lot of artist friends, and I know it can be frustrating with them dealing sometimes on a script level with folks who don't necessarily understand their process and understand sort of how to cater to it. So hopefully I can speak to them a little bit more. And I just have, look, coming from, I think it's actually fairly common guys who come from art and end up in writing, but I think guys who did come from art came from, just this really grandiose sense of just wanting to draw beautiful, crazy, weird things. And so hopefully I can bring that into writing because I'm coming from a place, like you said, I mean, this is much more in the fantasy end, but this is something that I definitely find very compelling. Is the idea that like you can do stuff in comics that you just can't really do anywhere else, and really, really trying to play into that and trying to figure out what what our parameters are and what like how far we can push things past reality. Because to me, reality. You don't read comics for reality. Reality is boring in that regard, as compared to comics.
I mean, while we're on the topic of art and the nature of reality and fantasy, you guys do really prodigious things with. I think for me, one of the big standouts is your guys' use of color in this book. And I was wondering, is that something that you guys had kind of talked about from the start? I mean, are we going to see more how that kind of works within the dream world?
Yeah, like I said, that one environment, for example, is just it's a persnickety feature of the guy who runs the place that you'll see that he's in color and the rest of the world isn't, and that's him. That's his own taste. But we're definitely trying to push. We have a powerhouse in terms of Matt and his ability. We're definitely trying to push the idea that one of the great strengths, if you've seen Matt's work in in Divine, for example, or in Paper Girls, or hell, any of the number of things that he's doing, is Matt can take a really impossible thing and make it seem plausible, make it seem real, and so we're really trying to push the range of stuff that he can present differently. Meaning, like he's the environments are all going to be very, very different from each other, but he still manages to ground them. And the other thing that, Matt is obviously phenomenal at is Matt can establish just this intense and moving mood and ambiance into all of these environments that really, really sort of drive. He's almost like the guy running a nightclub. He's really, really able to drive the emotions of these things past a point that a lot of other colors are able to do.
Yeah, I was curious because I'm always looking for an excuse to talk about Frank Miller on this show. But I read that, and I was curious about just how you got into comics in the first place. But some of your big influences, being Frank Miller or Bill Sienkiewicz, they're working on Elektra and Daredevil, and just kind of how the ball,
Kelly.
yeah, and yeah, of course, Mazzucchelli, and just how the ball got rolling with you. I'm always curious about someone who's a professional now and how they kind of got the ball rolling or inspired in the first place.
Yeah, Mazzucchelli more directly because Mazzucchelli was the guy who would, personally tell me when I was doing things wrong. But yeah, I mean, as a kid, I think I definitely was drawn to the form. But I think, yeah, the first time I stumbled across like Sienkiewicz, for example, or Miller's stuff, and I feel bad saying that because I think the weird thing is, and sorry, Frank, but I think Frank's work has almost damaged comics as much as it's improved it, because the shadow of Frank is a very, very dangerous thing. And people who can't sort of live up to it have been, there's been a lot of sort of mediocre wannabe Frank stuff over the years. But also, also everybody wants to be that sort of gritty. And if you can't do that, if you can't do Frank, then just don't do it.
Sure.
But
yeah.
Anyway, but no, that stuff, because it really, really expressed. Comics had been, there was a range of comics, but I grew up, I was an 80s kid. And I loved the comics, but there was still a basic idea of what a comic was. And then these guys came out of nowhere, with just this stuff that just did not seem possible. And it really gave me a sense, even though it was still superhero stuff, it really gave me a sense of just the range of stuff you can accomplish in the form. And like Sienkiewicz, I mean, hell, those covers, those New Mutants covers were just like, I wouldn't, unfathomable until you saw them. No one had ever done anything like that in comics. And plus, he'd come out of doing sort of Neil Adams-y kind of stuff for a little while, and suddenly came out with this just bombastic, operatic stuff. And then, yeah, that was just enormously inspiring to me, because it just not from a sense of emulation, although I think we all carry a little Frank in our pocket whether we like it or not. I think, just in terms of the idea that, like, hey, you don't have to do the same thing that everybody else is doing. You can pull out something crazy and something weird, and if you do it well, and it doesn't really matter if it matches. And I love that, like, Frank's story. Frank was 23, and they put him on a Daredevil book that was about to be canceled because nobody was reading it, and so nobody gave a shit what he was doing, and nobody was watching, and so he was able to do this crazy stuff because it was, it's like he was working overnight. Like his parents were out of town.
Yeah.
And he was able to do this crazy stuff, and then suddenly it was brilliant, and it launched his career. But it could have easily gone any number of different ways. But that's incredibly inspiring, because that's just the definition of just someone trying to pursue a unique voice, and follow their own ideas. And yeah, all that stuff was super empowering. And then Dave was a great example, because Dave is the guy who, beyond being one of the more influential guys of our era, Dave quit at his peak. Like, Dave was the biggest guy in comics and just decided he was okay. He was okay. He'd said all he needed to say, and he just walked. And that really sort of created for me a disconnect between the idea of comics as commerce and the idea of, like, what you feel like you need to do and having to do it as work. And obviously, look, I have a mortgage to pay. I'm not saying I'm above it, but that disconnect of just, like, really feeling like, I mean, Dave almost inarguably left millions of dollars on the table. But he didn't need it. He didn't want it. And just that idea of, like, just following your creativity first and foremost. I mean, I'm a fairly stubborn guy anyway, but I think that was probably a part of my stubbornness. because I have to a fault, even when we've gotten to the point of talking about doing things in different formats in film or in television, I've to a fault been incredibly stubborn about what I think is the right way to go, even when it may end up, causing something to fall apart. I'd rather do it right than do it, I'd rather do it right than well, it's not that I'd rather do it right and make money, but doing it right is more important to me. Like that comic to me, like, when I'm all dead and buried, that comic has to sort of stand on its own, and there's no context and there's no interviews and there's no anything to make that thing better than it is. So I just sort of try to focus on that.
I mean, speaking of kind of like having things stand on their own 2 feet, Drifter is coming to a close. The next issue comes out on April 12th. The last issue comes out in May, and then it's all collected out in June. How does it? I mean, you've been working with Nick since Viking at least, and
yeah, we've been working on this for 4 years or something. Nick said the other day.
Yeah, I mean, how does it feel now that you're getting close to the finish line of that marathon? Because I mean, it'll have almost run for 20 issues, and
yeah, it's like 500 pages or something. Nick did the math the other day, and it was very depressing to hear. Yeah, it's cathartic and very depressing because it's like it's like your kid's going off to college or something. I finished this. I mean, I'll go back in now, and 18 is at the printer already. I will go back in now at 19 when Nick is fully done with the art, and I usually do my tweaks and annoy the hell out of my letterer by finessing things that just really don't seem like they need to be finessed. But so I will still have a couple days left with it. But just watching, like Nick just sent me layouts today, and then his layouts have the lettering on them. So I'm just sitting there reading the comic, and I'm very proud of it. I'm very happy with it. I think hopefully when we're done, we'll have succeeded in all of our goals. But it's enormously depressing. Not because, and again, we're ending where we wanted to end. It's not anything like that. It's just depressing to like, we've walked with these characters. We've defined these characters. These characters have, it's a cliche to say it, but also characters sort of speak to you, as much as you try to speak to them, as much as you try to define what they say, they have a way of doing their own thing. So just to say goodbye to these characters is a bummer, but it's also cathartic to be able to finally, like, Drifter is a book specifically that has a ton of mystery that it's wrapped in, and it is exciting to finally be able to sort of unravel that stuff and to let people in on the punchline, I guess. And I'm excited to see people's reactions to that stuff. But yeah, we've never really gone this long with something, and certainly something we've created. So I think it's mine and Nick's both longest project, and certainly our longest creator-owned project. And it's really weird to walk away from, like, these are our babies. Like, nobody hired us to do this. This is our thing. We are certainly going to miss them.
Having said that, you, especially in the most recent issues and of course Volume 3, you really put these guys through the ringer.
Yeah, I'm not very nice to them. You'll see when it wraps up. It's a tough world, and and it's a lot of sort of what these characters have to deal with in their own, in sort of establishing to the. I mean, it goes back to our very first question tonight is, just what these characters defining themselves, and these characters sort of going through their lives and what they want to be and what they should be, and all that stuff, and some of this ugliness hopefully leads to them getting to a better place, physically or mentally. There's obviously a lot of conflict with the characters as we go, in terms of like what they're, Pollux is not a happy-go-lucky guy. He's a pretty I don't know if depressed is the right word, although that's probably part of it. But he's a very almost old gumshoe character, of the guy who just carries this burden on his back, and wants to help folks, but isn't always the nicest guy. So some of these horrendous paces. Yeah, this is really it's also something that I find very compelling, and I haven't seen a ton of in fiction is the idea that the planet itself is an organism, and the planet has its own sort of pathways. And as we found out, as our weather has changed on this planet, um, it kind of we feel super empowered and powerful until a flood wipes us out for a week,
Mm.
and then we realize that we really, whatever stretch of power we have is mostly luck and just how it went. So that the idea of the planet itself having its own ideas, and not literally conscious ideas, but that having its own parameters, that it wouldn't necessarily be conducive to what you wanted to do as a society. I find that also pretty interesting.
Would you say, in retrospect, that was kind of one of the underlying themes to the book? The idea that at once no man is an island, especially in the overwhelming face of nature.
Oh, yeah, I think, I mean, in the overwhelming face of nature and the overwhelming face of, I think, reality. It's just, I don't know if I necessarily want to call it fate, but how often have you plotted out your day just to have it just completely derailed by something, and then you've literally imagined, pit stops in your day, and you'll be here at 3, and you'll be here at 6, and you'll be whatever, and then I remember a close family member passed away, like 5 hours before a flight that was going to be like a 2-week trip to Greece. And they went from sort of packing their bags and like finishing packing their bags and putting their novels that they were going to read, which ended up never getting read, to like that morning at the same time, same time they were supposed to be on a flight, the wife planning, sitting in the funeral home. And just that idea, like, yeah, your own ambitions are often irrelevant to what the world and circumstance, and you get hit by a car, it doesn't really matter, what bar you were planning to go to tonight.
Kind of the same idea with Zelda and her in her dreams over in Black Cloud.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, there's I think, I mean, that's part of the interesting thing in general about, like, I tend to write about ego a lot, but I think that's also one of the fascinating things about ego, because ego is also, like, again, it's fairly irrelevant in a lot of cases. It's not, you can be as prideful and think you're right as possible, but that tree falls on you. The tree doesn't give a shit who you are or what you think.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, something that we ask everybody that comes on the show, Ivan, what are you currently geeking out over?
What am I geeking out over? That's a good question. Well, I just from a geeky perspective, I haven't actually bought one yet, and I don't remember the name of it, but I just looked up today that Nintendo thing, that it's like a little handheld thing that you can.
Oh, the Switch?
Yeah, the Switch. You can play it on your TV, but you can play it on the subway, and that seemed pretty exciting. Although I don't have enough time to play video games, so I'm not sure that that's a really reasonable way to spend my money. But that I found like I could that rekindled like a weird geekiness that I haven't connected with since I was a kid. What am I geeking out over? I got very much into just reading books this year again. I used to read a lot when I was younger, and then this modern world, there's a lot of distractions, and a friend of mine, Will Dennis, who used to be an editor over at Vertigo and is now a freelance editor, he sort of turned me on to this idea that, like, he reads 25 pages a day every day. And he said it's a big enough amount that you get a lot done, but it's a small enough amount that if you don't get it done, it's not a big deal. And I don't remember what the math was, but he was like, you read, it's still War and Peace 8 times a year. And so I've been reading. I'm on like my 8th book of the year so far, which is, probably more books than I read. I think last year I read a little bit more, but 2 years ago, probably more books than I read the entire year. So that's been a lot of fun, and paper books, which, I've been reading digitally, but I just gotten into just sort of, paper books, putting them in my pocket, bringing them on the subway. And that's been a lot of fun to just be able to disconnect and not have to, do social media or whatever. Just not constantly feel like you have to know what everyone else is up to. or that everybody has constant access to you, and you just have no. It's for a New Yorker. It's as close as we get to just a walk in the woods.
Yeah, checking out. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Somebody else that we had on asked kind of like how what I try to do is I try to read 5 of something. So either 5 chapters of something prose, or like in the case of like, especially when we've got deadlines, like writing or reading like 5 single issues of something, just some metric to keep going. And yeah, the 25-page thing. What, if you don't mind me asking, what are some of the highlights of the 7 or 8 books you've read so far this year?
I read Junot Diaz's Brief Wondrous Life of Oscar Wilde. That's probably the best thing that I read all year. I have been I'm going to say this and it's going to sound backhanded. I turned on a lot of my friends read audiobooks, but I've never done it, and I've been weirdly suspicious of it. Just because just the idea of an actor defining the cadence of a book, or the tone of a book, the pacing, that sort of stuff. I'm very suspicious of that. But I've been reading the Harry Potter books on that because I found those they're weird on YouTube actually, and those I won't say they're like knocking my socks off or anything, but those are they're just fun to sort of shut your brain off, and I can also burn through those in a couple days.
Yeah.
Because the guy speaks very, very slowly, so I turn the speed up. But yeah, those are sort of fun distractions. I can listen to those like while I'm walking, or on the train. So something where I wouldn't necessarily be reading a book, something where my hands can't be, or my eyes, more importantly, can't be distracted. But so I'm like on the 4th Harry Potter book. The Junot Diaz was amazing. There's anything super exciting. I read The Orchard Keeper, which is a Cormac McCarthy book. What else? I had read in chunks, but sort of put off sitting through reading all of Robert McKee's story, because I think there's a lot of good stuff in there, but I also think it's really long-winded. And he really uses 100 words in place of 1 sometimes. And so I finally muscled through that and forced myself to get all the way through it, not in a sitting, but just sort of consecutively. Yeah, that's about it, I think.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned the audiobook thing, because I have like a fairly long commute to work. So all of my books, I feel like I'm cheating, but I've been doing like audiobooks a lot just because it helps with the drive to and from work. And I recently did the audiobook for The Exorcist, and William Peter Blatty, the author, read it. And he does all the voices. And, unfortunately, the unfortunate thing is that spurred it on is when he passed away, I was like, I've never actually read that book. And so I work like night shifts. And so I'm driving home at like midnight and listening to The Exorcist. And William Peter Blatty has this amazing voice. And he does just enough difference for each character where it's like this wonderful little play he does. And he has like, I guess he was in his late 70s when he did the recording. And he has the perfect gravelly demonic voice for Reagan. It's really cool. But yeah,
that just sounds interesting. Yeah, I sort of decided that if there was a book where the prose wasn't like the thing necessarily, like the Harry Potter books, I'm not saying they're poorly written, but they're not necessarily about their amazing prose. But like, I don't know if I would read a Cormac McCarthy book that way.
Sure. Yeah.
But yeah, that actually sounds pretty great.
Yeah, it's creepy. Very, very, very creepy.
The Harry Potter guy, I don't remember his name, but I guess he's very famous because Cliff Chang, who I share an office with, said that I was in for a treat. But that guy, yeah, he does all the little voices, and he does, there's songs. He sings the songs, and it's very much like an old timey radio show.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
I know the UK version. I don't know if it's same for the North American version, but the UK audiobooks were read by Stephen Fry.
Yeah, I think it's that guy. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Stephen Fry.
Nice, Mr. QI himself.
Yeah, no, and it's great. It's very fun, and I always wonder how much, like how much he has to clear. Like, like for example, there's a song or there's whatever else. Like, how much does he have to clear what his take is?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm always curious that must be like exhausting to do an audiobook. Like how much they do a day or how much,
Well, I mean, John Hodgman, when he's reading the hobo names and
Yeah,
areas of my expertise, he loses his voice.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just reminded me. I had those. I got an Audible membership and never ever used it, but I downloaded the ones that I did download with Hodgman's books. So I have to actually, John, if you're listening, sorry. But yeah, I have to actually sit and listen to those because now that I have them and that I can listen to, and obviously it's not a problem, John reading his own stuff because I think his voice would, if anything, add to the charm if rather than detract.
That's the thing. Like I'm very weird with the books I pick because, like I said, one of the highlights of the Exorcist book was it's read by the guy who wrote the novel.
Yeah.
And then I'm always bummed when I read an autobiography and it's not read by the person. That feels really, well, Schwarzenegger's I was really bummed because he reads the first chapter and the last chapter. And so I was like, oh, we're going to get to hear Schwarzenegger talk, this like 8-9 hour thing. And then Stephen Lang does most of it though, unfortunately, which is like the opposite of Arnold Schwarzenegger in terms of voice. But
Stephen Lang is like who they hired for Schwarzenegger roles once Schwarzenegger stopped doing those roles.
Yeah, that's true. I guess.
Can you imagine Schwarzenegger in Avatar?
I guess it's fitting though. So they hired him to do the reading the book role once Schwarzenegger was done doing it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I guess in a perfect way. Yeah.
In what's his name, Keith Richards' autobiography, Life, he does something similar. He reads the bookends, and it's Johnny Depp that does the bulk of the audiobook. And it's like, well, I guess you were just Keith Richards in like the Pirates films.
That makes sense.
Yeah, does he do it like as Captain Jack?
Oh, he absolutely does.
Does he really?
Every
That's
time
cool.
he has like a first person or like a quote that Keith Richards says within the text, it's clearly like Captain Jack Sparrow.
Oh, that's cool.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. But so Ivan, before we sign out, is there anything else you'd like to plug?
No, we're pretty well focused on Black Cloud. We're finishing up the first arc right now, and we're very excited about it. We're also doing an absurd little bit of a tour in April to promote things. So Jason and I and Greg are all the launch weekend. We're all going to be in the Bay Area and Berkeley at Escapist and Trickster doing a BBQ&A, I believe the first event is called. That's cool. And just a sort of boozy reception where you can hear all of us ramble way more than you want to, and possibly sign things if you want that. And then we're going to be Greg and I will be in I want to say it's Bloomfield, but someone's going to get mad at me if I say that, so pretend I didn't say that. In Colorado, outside of Denver, at a convention called the Fried Pie Convention. And then Jason and I are going to be at C2E2 signing, and we did a little exclusive cover for both of those convention events, and so it should be fun.
If you guys ever find yourselves in DC, we'll be around.
Oh yeah, I did it. I mean, I haven't done a signing. I think when Viking first came out, I did signing out in DC, and I haven't done one since. So I'm dying to get out there. I like DC a lot.
Yeah. Current administration be damned, but
I like just the food parts and not the not the executive branch parts, if I can avoid those. Of course.
Hell, legislative and judicial aren't that great these days either. But hey,
yeah. Well, the thing is, the thing about those parts is that at least they seem to mostly be functioning within the normal parameters of what you expect from even a government you disagree with.
Sure.
Meaning if things are unpopular, if whatever, then there are. But the old executive branch seems to function completely independent of time and space, and it's a little bit it's scarier, I guess, just to not have any idea what a person is going to do, rather than have shitty things that at least you can sort of plan around and react to.
Yeah, I mean, better the devil you know, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, than the devil who's just crazy and just does something completely different every single day.
Yeah. But anyway, on a lighter note, I mean,
just ending's on a bummer here.
Yeah. But Black Cloud, I mean, again, you guys did a fantastic job on that debut, and I've been following Drifter, so it'll be interesting to see how that all I mean, can we? I mean, you don't have to go into details, Ivan, but I assume at this point a happy ending is probably out.
Yeah. I wouldn't call it a happy ending, I guess, but there's definitely there's a lot of closure, and I think that there's a little bit of hope. Yeah, I mean the main thing is I can't without spoiling other stuff, but yeah, there's a lot of closure. There's a lot of it's again we set up something to be as like the crazy blast of a gunfight, and so this is now our twist on like what really happens once you get into that situation. So I think I hope people will be happy. We're really happy, and I think Nick and Sebastian, our editor, said they both cried when they read the. I mean, I'm not claiming full credit for that, but I think. I think they both also cried because it was the last script they were going to read, but I think they both said they got a little misty reading the last script. So I hope it's I'm not sure happy, but it won't necessarily be so dour. When I say cry, more of a, like maybe more like a college graduation cry. I don't know.
Gilmore Girls style.
Yeah, exactly. It weirdly becomes a Gilmore Girls episode at the end of Drifter. That's the twist ending.
That's perfect.
Mom, I'm pregnant.
Exactly.
All right. Well, Ivan, thanks again for coming on the show. And again, Black Cloud number 1 is out in comic book shops everywhere on Wednesday, April 5th. Thanks again, man.
Drifter, I don't know the date, but I want to say it's like the
12th. Yeah, 12th, and then keep an eye out for that final issue in May and final trade in June.
Yes, thank you very much, guys.
Yep.
Lovely chat.
Yes.
Lovely chat.
Indeed.
Hopefully I know you recommended he read The Exorcist.
Oh yeah.
So hopefully he'll
take that up.
Yeah. And we certainly, in terms of recommendations, we certainly recommend that you pick up Black Cloud, because that really is a cool, awesome first issue. I mean, imaginative use of color, like we're talking about, and we can't. I mean, it's all about dreams. Sky's the limit. Let's see where it goes next. And though, talking about the end of Drifter, I was looking at the image previews.
Mm-hmm.
No Drifter in there for the first time in, I guess, ever.
Yeah.
So that's a bit of a tier. But yeah, check it out. That entire series has been awesome, especially if you like space westerns and that sort of thing. Can't recommend that one enough. But you guys get in anything? I know the both of you saw films.
Saw some films. Some good old film de foes. Chris, we should start with Power Rangers because we both saw that.
Yeah, let's start with Power Rangers.
Okay.
Morphin' time.
It was weird. Both you and I kind of expressed that there was no way to disappoint us.
Yeah, impossible.
But that's not necessarily a good thing.
No,
because neither of us went in with high expectations.
I mean,
or expectations.
The thing for me is like the Power Rangers was this super bright flash in the pan for me when I was a kid. Probably second or third grade. When I watched the pilot episode, everyone knew about the show coming out, and so we all watched it. And then that following Monday, I've said it a million times, it was like the Beatles and the Ed Sullivan Show. The fucking hallways are going crazy with the playgrounds of who your favorite Ranger was and all that kind of stuff. And the hot item was trying to find a Power Ranger toy, and I remember finally getting one, and it was the coolest thing. I think the first one I ever got was the Black Ranger, and then I finally got the red one. He hit the belt and it flips his head.
Yeah, I had that one.
Oh yeah, I almost bought the new one just for like to close the circle, to end it, but I didn't. Because I really
so that loop remains unresolved.
Yeah, unresolved loop.
Much like Joseph Gordon-Levitt in the movie Looper.
Yes. Okay. Okay. Took a second. Because I'm not like a humongous fan of the costumes. They're okay. There's a little too much going on for me. So anyway, yeah, I was like, yeah, let's, I'll go see it. I had this gnawing persistence in my mind. I was like, I got to see this, got to check it out. So I was off today. I bought the first showing, like 10 something, and went. There was a smattering of people in the audience, and like I said,
you're sitting next to an old ass man.
Yeah, it was like a 70-year-old man, and I was like, you would have been like 50 when the Power Rangers first premiered. But hey, man, maybe he like really loves the Power Rangers.
Maybe it was a really cool thing that he and his child shared or grandchild. I don't know.
There was
what
nobody.
his
There was
reproductive
just,
rates
it was
is.
just him. So,
Uh,
who knows?
Yeah.
But I don't know what he thought of it. I should have asked him.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I walked in here on accident.
Yeah. This.
I
This isn't Logan.
So for me, I right from the get-go, right from the first trailer, I was very about this movie because a lot of people know this about me. I really dislike the concept of the gritty reboot, especially for something that was like so lighthearted and a part of my childhood. So right off the bat, I acknowledge that I have a biased opinion on this movie. But it is kind of refreshing to hear me complain about a movie because I feel like usually I'm like, oh, come on, guys, it was still fun.
Yeah.
Well, if that's the case, then you're in luck this week.
Yeah, right? I am a negative Nancy this week. So I was like a lot of times, especially off mic, when we're talking about movies, Sam's like, oh, I'll go see it on a $5 day. And like that was my opinion on this movie. I was like, I'll check it out because it's the Power Rangers. Power Rangers is something that I, was huge for my childhood.
Yeah.
So like I still wanted to see it. I wanted to see what happened to, the characters that I know and love, see what they did with it just out of curiosity. And Ken, friend of the show, Ken, my co-host on Laserdix, got to see an advanced screening of it the Wednesday before it came out, and he came out of that movie just abuzz with praise, saying that it was great, it was awesome, it was so cool.
Yeah, I saw like all my friends on Facebook were like raving, not raving necessarily, but they were like, "Oh, it's just so much fun. It does what it, it's exactly what I wanted."
Friend of the show,
"Oh."
Josh, loved it.
Yeah, and the fact that Ken dug it because Ken's the biggest Power Ranger fan I know, so I was like, "Oh, I'll give it a shot."
Yeah, he puts me to shame because he's also a fan of the Super Sentai shits, which is what birthed Power Rangers. But yeah, so Ken was like, "Oh man, we gotta go see it." So I go, I see it with him. He's so excited to see this movie, to pay to see this movie the second time, that he throws on his Megazord costume, his like Party City, like $100 Megazord costume. That's basically like pajamas with the puffy stuff. Which is not to say that it's a bad costume. I like it. It's fine. I'm just trying to give everyone a visual of what this man looks like going into a movie theater as a full-grown adult. I love him, though. It's great. I love his enthusiasm for stuff, even if I don't agree with whether it was good or not. But so we go to the theater. Unfortunately, there's like no one there. So he's like, oh, no one wanted to take pictures with me. And then like finally we walk in and like the guys that work there are like, oh my God, it's so cool. He's, let's get pictures with him. So he got really happy because people like, even though there weren't like other customers there were people that wanted to take pictures with him. So like he was having fun and I was like, cool. I get to be that guy that stands next to the weirdo.
It's our lot in life, really.
Yeah. But because I love going to conventions, but I don't like dressing up, so I'm usually the guy carrying everyone's bags. So I'm used to it. But so we sit down, we're watching the movie, and yeah, it is exactly what I expected from the trailers. Is just a slow, chugging along, kind of like a character piece. That's just like it's. These guys saw Breakfast Club and they were like, we can make that, but let's give them superpowers.
Yeah. Well, I told you, like we were talking about the before off mic, that this shows the movie's influences is everything except the Power Rangers.
Yeah.
And I granted, like I said, I don't really care anymore because I tend to have a soft spot in my heart for the Power Rangers because I did enjoy that. That's I guess the season. I guess I watched the Power Rangers. Probably. I guess it probably was.
So like
whatever.
60 episodes.
The saga of Tommy and the White Ranger, and that's about where where it all ends for me. It wasn't his knife like a flute that he would play too.
As the Green Ranger, his dagger was a flute. As the White Ranger, he had like a sword that was sentient, like in the movie The Shadow, called Saba, that he could use to control his White Tiger Zord.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, it does. My kind of like barometer for shit lately has been Iron Fist, and going into this.
Have we gone ham on Iron Fist yet?
Oh yeah.
Did we?
I'll go
That's
ham on
right.
Iron Fist every episode for the rest of this series.
I couldn't remember
disaster.
because I still haven't touched it yet.
Don't.
I forgot.
Anyway, anyway, so I remember being like, well, this 2-hour teen movie has better character arcs, fight sequences.
Yeah.
They're not great, but they're better than Iron Fist in my opinion.
The fight sequences are edited better than Iron Fist
because
shot better too. I'm willing to.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And yeah, people learn stuff.
I've been knocking the movie a lot, which just as a disclaimer, it's just not to say it's a bad movie. It's just not what I wanted as a Power Rangers movie. You know, like it.
Well, kids would be bored watching this.
It's definitely geared towards an older audience because they don't fucking morph until they hit the 2-hour mark almost.
You know, again, like you could cut the last 30 minutes of this movie, just watch that. It's an episode of the Power Rangers.
Yeah.
Because the whole movie's about like them learning to morph, and it's not as simple as like it's morphin' time and then you stare into the abyss. And
they have to
screams your animal's name, or dinosaur's name. You have to like be one. With
you have
each other.
You have to find your chi. You have to find your.
They do that better than Iron Fist too.
So like there's a lot of like things to throw in the plus column of this movie for like it wrote its characters very well.
Yeah,
they do a good job of acting their characters.
The biggest thing, I think, the core of the movie being these are strangers that have to become friends, and I buy it. You know, in the beginning they're all like kind of like what the fuck, and it's not like they meet. They get their powers and they're automatically best friends. You know, they fight each other and
they fight each other up almost until they morph.
You know, they're keeping secrets. You know, there's a campfire sequence that I remember thinking is actually really well done.
Yeah, no, that was like a great dramatic scene.
Yeah, it was, and I think it was elevated because you know the whole movie's not super great. Yeah, so that was kind of like, oh shit. I was like, that's okay. But, you know, it has all the, I guess, the basic check marks of the Power Rangers in there. They actually have the Power Rangers theme that I feel like they used at the wrong time.
I was so annoyed. I feel like they used it at an all right time, but as soon as it kicked on, I was like, oh, okay, we're going to get 2 seconds of this.
Oh, yeah.
And I got 5, so I was like, okay.
My thing was like, I wanted it when the Megazord pops out of the fucking hell hole. That would have been awesome.
Oh, man. That shot was pretty metal.
No, I mean, like, that shot was pretty cool.
The fight scene at the end with the piss monster, Goldar, was pretty sweet.
It does put the Smallville destruction to shame in Man of Steel. Not necessarily Metropolis level. But Smallville wise, like there is a Krispy Kreme that they, you know, and there's another place that's clearly like a real place. I forgot what it was. Because Krispy Kreme was like sponsored with like made donuts for Power Rangers, which is to say like chocolate covered, like glazed chocolate donuts with like the little lightning bolt on it. Like that was the donut.
I feel like they could have done like chocolate glaze, strawberry glaze, red glaze.
Like
what would that be? Apple,
raspberry, strawberry,
cherry.
Cherry.
Strawberry again.
Just all strawberry.
But they could.
But they fuck up Angel Grove hard.
Yeah, they do.
Like to the point where there's no school for like 3 years because they have to like they get like almost terraformed. Like they go
fair,
like.
To be fair, in the TV show they fuck up Angel Grove every single episode.
Yeah, that's true.
But also, Angel Grove is full of skyscrapers, whereas this movie, it's like in the middle
it's
of
like the town from Thor.
Yeah.
It's like small.
I feel like, I want to say, like Superman 2, when Zod lands.
Yeah.
Thor. Yeah. And Angel Grove, all the same strip.
Yes, and Angel Grove, like, granted, I think all the destruction is like in one central location where the Krispy Kreme is.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like on Main Street. Old Town Main Street.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like we went to like Old Town Manassas.
Yeah. And it gets fucked.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's death. There's a lot of death.
I will say, one thing Ken was complaining about was how heavy-handed the Krispy Kreme product integration was.
That was ridiculous.
I did not mind it because, you know what? That was fucking cheese, you know, to the I don't know what
max?
I'm trying to say. Yeah, cheese to the max, which is in line with what I want.
The Power Rangers are cheesy as shit. In this movie,
when Rita goes into the Krispy Kreme and like just grabs a donut and is like,
and eats it as Gordon or whatever his name
Goldar.
is. Goldar smashes shit.
Rita's number one henchman, Goldar.
No. And you know,
but yeah, I hear him go, ugh,
Yeah.
and whereas I'm going,
I don't.
the first time I've like emoted the entire movie.
Yeah, I don't necessarily know the audience though.
Yeah,
because
I don't think it knows the audience.
because like the Power Rangers aren't that big right now. Like the kids are not running around playing Power Rangers like they were. So like little kids, they'll see it because there's like the armor and it looks cool. But again, that's like it's a 2-hour movie that they
and
don't...
these parents who presumably like grew up watching Power Rangers might be like, oh hey, this is a new movie for something that I watched as I was a kid.
Yeah, but I mean, there was like a group of like really young kids in front of us. Like there was like a baby in front of me.
Yeah,
and there's a couple shots that were like questionable in terms of like it'd be pretty freaky for like a little kid to see. Like the how Rita comes back as like that charred corpse thing. That's pretty freaky. And that nightmare that Zordon gives to everybody, where it's like ash humans crushing all of each other.
I liked that too because it was like German expressionism.
Yeah. And so I was like, what the fuck? And then like, it's like what movie? Like, what are they doing with? Like, where are they going for this? And then it's like, oh, here's the Krispy Kreme shot out, and then here's the pee in this cup, which everyone fucking thought was the funniest shit in the world.
I thought that was the dumbest thing in the world.
But it's in the trailer, so we knew it was coming.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, the kids must have been bored watching this because they don't care about arc and motivations and all that kind of stuff. And again, the movie doesn't like knock it out of the park with that. But like, I give it props for trying with it.
Yeah,
and there is some kind of that in there.
Yeah, I do feel that Ken now knows how I felt while the three of us were watching Kong because.
I still hated Kong more than this.
There were multiple times where Ken would like lean over to me and be like, ha 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 ha, and I was just sitting there stoic with my arms crossed.
I mean, to
just
be fair,
like you were. Just
to
like
be fair,
you were
I'm pretty
watching
stoic
Kong.
in all the movies
That's
we
true.
see. But
That's
like,
true. But you were visually like annoyed at Kong. Like I could feel it.
Yeah, there was no point in this movie where I was like, hurry up and end. Like 20 minutes in the Kong, I was like, I fucking hate this movie.
We got about an hour and a half into Power Rangers, and I was like, I just want to go home and fucking watch the 1995 movie.
Oh god! You know what ended Power Rangers for me was that movie. I remember
Really?
my brother. Yeah, I remember.
Oddly enough, for me, it was Turbo, the second movie.
My brother and I we pre-ordered at a Blockbuster. We got the VHS, and we watched it. And when it ended, we're like, I think that chapter's done in our life. Like that movie was not
to be
necessary.
fair, that's a good.
Yeah, we're like, we're done.
The show, in my opinion, did take a turn.
I like this. I remember liking the suits a lot. In the movie, I was like, "Oh, they updated them."
Yeah, no, the suits are cool.
Those are still my favorite suits. Out of all
the CG Zord, Megazord.
Oh, terrible!
Is about as bad as the CG Megazord in this movie.
Terrible.
I do not like CG Megazords. I want to see dude in a suit. By the way, that reminds me. Speaking of dude in a suit, Japanese stuff. Ken and I were talking on the way home, and Sam, I feel like you'd be the aficionado on such things, but he wanted to know. About like Godzilla type movies with dude in a suit stuff from the early 90s, like around the same time that the first Power Rangers movie came out.
Dude in a suit. I mean, there are.
I know that 2003 Godzilla movie had dude in a suit, or I think it was 2003.
I mean, if we're talking like, so Godzilla gets rebooted in 1985 after like the 70s. They're like, this is too ridiculous. Let's make Godzilla like fucking scary again.
Yeah.
And in 1985, they reboot Godzilla, and he's a bad guy again. He's not like, I'm the protector of Japan. He's like, I'm going to fuck you up.
Yeah.
And by the 90s, the problem with like 85 era, like Crisis on Infinite, post-crisis Godzilla,
right,
is because it's both.
We were all affected by that.
Yeah.
That's why I was born.
Of course. Post-crisis Godzilla is, so I guess what is 98? Heroes Reborn, and then... the Bryan Cranston Godzilla would effectively be like
New 52.
New 52 Godzilla.
Yeah.
The timelines match.
Hell on Earth.
And Godzilla, the most recent one to come out of Japan.
Oh, Shin Godzilla?
Yeah, Shin Godzilla. That would be
Godzilla Rebirth.
Yeah, Rebirth.
Yeah, so we've got so the worst thing about post-crisis Godzilla is Toho, the studio that does the Japanese films, the kaiju films. They were just like, we don't want to do the ridiculous. We don't want to do the ridiculous opponents for Godzilla. So their basic idea after like they've milked the Godzilla is the antagonist, teat dry, They
That reminds me of something real quick from Power Rangers. Go ahead, though.
what did that possibly?
It's let me just fucking tell you. Beginning of the movie, they're doing a prank. They take a cow into the locker room.
Again, this movie doesn't know what its audience is.
As a senior prank.
Clearly does not want its audience to be children.
Yeah, and the guy's like talking to Jason, and he's like, "Yo, I milked it before," and he's like, "Dude, this is a male cow." He's like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "How many udders did you milk?" He's like, "One. It got really big and hard in my hands." And then they show the dick on camera.
Yeah.
They show the cow's dick, and he looks down. And he's like, "Oh man." That's how Power Rangers starts.
Delicious. Does the body good.
The first, the first scene after the cold open.
The cold open's dope.
Yeah, the cold open is sweet.
Cool. The prologue, the prehistory.
Yeah. With Bryan Cranston as the Red Ranger.
Yeah. Pale as hell.
Yeah. Wrinkly as Deadpool.
Nice.
Or I guess.
The problem was like Toho was like, let's just put them against different versions of Godzilla. So you got Godzilla versus Biollante, which is basically plant Godzilla. You got Godzilla versus
that's not ridiculous at all.
Yeah, you've got Godzilla versus Space Godzilla, which is weird. And then you've of course got Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla.
But though that era was still dude in a suit.
Still dudes in suits. It was dudes in suits up until at least for Toho, not the 1998 one, but it was dudes in suits until 2004.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, he and I were talking about or I was complaining about how stupid the CGI Megazord looks in the '95 Power Rangers movie, and I was like, man, I just want Godzilla style, dude in a suit. And he was like, oh, I wonder if they were still doing dude in a suit in the Godzilla movies around the same era. And I mentioned the early 2000. I think it's 2003 where, I guess the last one with the dude in a suit.
Godzilla Final Wars. And I feel like, Shin Godzilla or Godzilla Resurgence, if you watch it here in the States, is also, practical effects.
It's
a mix.
Yeah, it's very well done mix. Because I saw it at the Alamo. Yeah. For the most part, I want to say, from my memory, Godzilla is pretty much all CGI. But really well done, superimposed in front of actual cityscapes and actual physical miniatures and stuff like that, and it's beautiful. If you have the chance, go see it. It's done by the same guy that created Evangelion, and you can tell. It does a lot of the same angles and stuff.
Yeah.
Anyway,
so you also saw Beauty and the Beast, and you also saw Life, and you at home don't know who I'm pointing to, so you'll find out.
Yeah.
I saw Life. And let me tell you all the spoiler details because I read about them because I don't give a shit. No, I saw Beauty and the Beast.
I found life.
Yeah, I found life on this planet, and damn it. No, I saw Beauty and the Beast and it was fine. I mean, it's bland. The Beast was I don't know why they did CG. Speaking of practical effects, he just looks bad in CG.
They could have just done a Ron Perlman Beast.
There were elements that were cool with the Beast early on where he's mysterious and clouded, but everything you love about the animated film is done at best okay in this. The big ballroom scene, nothing special. Nothing special at all.
The attack on the castle?
Nothing special at all. There is a scene. Well, the thing is, most of the movie is fucking animated anyway because it's fucking furniture talking. And so there's a moment when I realized I'm just watching animated cups talk to animated candelabras or whatever, played by Ewan McGregor. Very weird. Not great. Not great. And then Sir Ian McKellen plays Cogsworth. It's fine. But I will say, keeping up with me getting emotional in every movie I've ever seen, and Kong is on that list. I won't tell you when because it doesn't fucking deserve it. But there's a scene in Beauty and the Beast, and our buddy Vernon, we both were talking about this. I was like, why am I getting emotional during this? But there's a scene where at the end they're all fucking horrifically turning into furniture because the fucking last petal falls. The last petal falls, and the fucking chip, the little cup, is falling to his death because he's gonna shatter, and then he'll become, when he turns into a human, he'll just be fucking glob pieces of a boy all over the ground, which would have been awesome.
Doesn't Beast kill a music box?
No, not in the movie.
No, that's the animated. That's the comic. Never mind.
Yeah, And so Chip is falling, right? He's like, Mom! And a fucking coat hanger rack reaches out and grabs him with his fucking wooden coat hanger arms and puts him down to safety, and then just turns into a coat hanger. And I swear to God, that was out of any human interaction and any song that was played so beautifully. This fucking like mute coat hanger saving a cup. So take that with a grain of salt. Everybody has a fucking hard on for Gaston, by the way. I don't know why. Fuck him.
Well, because
by
no
the
one
way.
fights like Gaston.
No, because like everyone
He's
before.
especially good at expectorating.
It's fucking bullshit. I don't want to hear any more about Gaston because I remember everyone's like the real hero.
I mean,
Belle
when he
should have
was a
picked
kid,
Gaston.
he ate 5 dozen eggs.
And so fuck
Now
him.
he's roughly the size of a barge.
Fuck both of you. And it's all shit. But no, but Emma Watson. It pains me to say, like, miscast big time. I think, she's great. I mean, I'll forever love her in Perks of Being a Wallflower. But I don't know what to say. Spider-Man. You guys don't know what that's about. Fine. Yeah. You got to be our friends to know what that's about. And that's not great. Anyway, the movie's not great.
Friends?
The movie's not great.
That too, really.
Yeah, that too. And it's fine. I'd say if I'm rating Power Rangers, C. If I'm rating Beauty and the Beast, C-. And if I'm rating Kong, F.
F.
That's the worst movie you've seen this year, isn't it?
Yes.
What's the worst movie you've seen this year? For me, it's The Founder.
Oh, wait, yeah, The Founder.
Founder.
No,
Founder's.
Founder's.
I forgot that was this year.
Yeah.
I think I
Founder.
Oh, I think I forgot that we watched that
Yeah.
until you said that.
Founder's up there.
Yeah, because I was like, oh, wow, he saw The Founder. I saw The Founder.
Yeah, both Founder and Kong are neck and neck, though.
So I saw Life, the new movie with Jake Gyllenhaal and Ryan Reynolds. And I saw it about a week ago, and I still don't know how I feel about it. I'm still kind of perplexed, which Jake pointed out before we started recording pretty much means that it's a thumbs down. Which, much like Power Rangers, I'm not going to say that it's an overall bad movie. There's stuff done really well in Life, but it's like the filmmakers watched Gravity and Alien, and they were like, we can do that. We can bring them together, and we can make that movie.
Dis.
Dis.
D-I-S.
Dis. But so, like, I think for me, like, I just didn't get quite what I was hoping for with the movie, so I just kind of, like, ended it with, like it's an interesting movie, but it follows the same basic plot or cadence, not cadence, plot, sure, of Alien. Alien organism gets on board the ship and kills off everyone one by one in very surprisingly, like, gruesome ways. Like, I can handle gore and stuff like that, but, like, I was not prepared to, like, see a man get eaten from the inside out, and you get that with the first, like, real kill of the movie. And I was like, oh, okay, so we're going Event Horizon on this. Gotcha. Which I love for Event Horizon. But that was like, you knew that was what you were getting into. So, like, this one was just kind of, like, jarring to me, and then also, like, a lot of the movie made me very uncomfortable just because of, like, my anxieties with space, which I always forget that I have until I'm watching a movie where someone gets unhooked from a tether and just starts floating off into space, and I'm like, oh, okay, now I'm having a panic attack. So I guess that means that the horror is effective in the movie Life because it worked, but, like, that's not what I wanted to watch. I guess, and I don't know what I was expecting because it's definitely marketed as a horror-ish movie, but yeah, no. And then spoilers, Ryan Reynolds is the first one to die, so I kind of, like, checked out.
So he's the one that gets eaten inside out?
Yeah. It's pretty metal. He does a good job of acting the scene, but yeah, like but I was in it mostly for him.
Well, that was I think that was part of the bait and switch. Like they were like, because at the time he's like the biggest name on the cast.
Him and Jake Gyllenhaal, and Jake Gyllenhaal hasn't really done anything except for that boxing movie.
He's been trying to get the Oscar for years.
He's been
Yeah.
fucking circling that bad boy.
Yeah, but yeah, so
He's got the DiCaprio.
yeah, but yeah, I felt like I kind of got executive decisioned on it.
Oh yeah, another good comparison. Psycho, of course. Yeah, Rihanna's on Bates Motel.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. It's pretty exciting.
Old Riri.
Yeah.
What you
But yeah,
want,
so-
want, what you want. Give
So
it to me, baby, like boom, boom, boom.
So I still give Life kind of a rating.
If you had to give it a letter grade like Jake did with the Kong Skull Island,
Guess I could give it like a C plus B minus because like it's like I said, it's a well done movie, just not my cup of tea.
cuppa. Yeah, I just haven't I haven't seen anything lately. I've been watching the Supergirl Flash crossover. Was delightful.
I'm just about caught up on that. I realized I had about a month's worth of both on my DVR, and so I started watching Supergirl, and then it was like I had like 2 more left, and it was like catch the 2-parter, on Flash, and I was like, God damn it! Now I have to catch up on Flash first.
What do you think of Mon-El? I think there's too much focus on Mon-El.
Yeah,
Like he's fine,
yeah,
but he shouldn't be that prominent.
yeah. I feel like I'm fine with him being bigger than Superman on the show.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, I feel like there's too much.
He's like substitute Superman. He's like
Yeah.
love interest Superman.
Yeah, basically, he's a Superman that it's okay for Supergirl to have a love interest in because they're not related.
Yeah. He's a Daxamite.
Prince of the Daxamites.
Yes. Lest we forget.
Yeah. Well, for a hot second, I was like, "Oh, I'm not allowed to say that," and I was like, "Oh no, you're beyond me."
Yeah.
You got to the crossover.
Yeah.
You got Sorbo status.
Sorbo.
Yeah.
He's there. He's good old Kevin.
As soon as I saw that trailer, I was like, Sorbo, and I was like, I have to text Sam. Supergirl has Sorbo status.
What a man.
Speak for yourself, cause I'm.
Yeah. I won't be there with you. Yeah. So I mean that's basically it. Thanks again to Ivan Brandon for coming on our little program. And chatting with us again. Yes. Black Cloud, hell of a read. It's out in comic book shores too. Maybe there's
Sure.
Are there coastal comic book shops? There are now.
There has to be.
Fuck yeah.
And it's on Comixology.
Yeah,
if you're
baby.
more digitally inclined.
Why not, man?
Yeah. Check it out, man. Check
Yeah.
it out. I feel like
Fucking dare you.
I think I asked Image if they could fly me out to San Diego a couple days early because I don't really get vacations because I dip into my vacation time to do these shows.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I'm just gonna explore Joshua Tree because it's a desert and it's 3 hours north.
You're gonna die out there.
I know. And you'll never so isn't Sam supposed to be at the show? It's like there's like a skeleton like even though it's only been like 2
That
hours.
Old Spice commercial where it's like he's using his drinking water to take a shower and he's
Yeah.
like, will this come back to haunt me? Only time will tell. And it cuts to a fucking dead skeleton. I guess a dead skeleton's an oxymoron. Well, not really. Not in the world we live in.
Yeah. Think about it this way. Everybody you know, everybody you see is a skeleton deep inside.
I mean, I feel like that's meant to be fucking like earth-shattering, but it's just fucking hilariously stupid.
That's like being like, hey, you know what? Everyone's naked underneath their clothes.
Yeah. You've been dying since the
That
day
takes
you
it to
were
the next
born.
level.
Yeah.
Like, we're all skeletons. And skeletons are just the funniest fucking thing.
Skeletons are fucking great. Like Army of Darkness skeletons.
Let's get the hell out of here.
Yeah, I love a good skeleton. Man.
I love a skeleton.
I love a skeleton that has eyeballs.
Oh,
Much
like
Evil
Ghost
Dead
Rider,
2.
early
Evil
Ghost
Dead?
Rider.
Yeah,
Early
yeah.
Ghost Rider has eyeballs.
Ghost Rider is so cool precisely because he's a skeleton.
He's a skeleton.
He's a flaming skeleton.
He is a
in leather,
flaming-
wrapped in chains,
Yeah.
on a
I
motorcycle.
prefer onesie stuntman outfit with the big collar.
What do you think of Stuntman? What's your favorite iteration of the orb?
Oh shit! You know what's
Is
funny?
it Stuntman orb?
Stuntman orb. Because I was looking up Ghost Rider shirts on eBay because I was like, I need to bright horizon. I need to spread my collection. Make more. I need to buy more fucking Ghost Rider shirts.
I need to horizon my
Christ.
broad.
Can't speak fucking English. And
Goddamn.
fucking English. But I was going through it. There's an orb shirt. I was like, who the fuck?
Jason Aaron.
And it's fucking massive. I was like, I almost bought it. But yeah, Stuntman orb. I mean, he shows up in fucking Ghost Rider, like in the Ghost Rider
Shows
fucking.
up in
It's fucking
Ghost
hilarious.
Rider. If it's written by Jason Aaron, flip a coin, and there's a good chance, like, because
He's in it.
He's in.
It's the guy it's the eyeball head, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The orb shows
gets
up
fucked.
in Ghost Rider.
The one that Original Sin.
Original
kicks
Sin.
off.
He's one of the big bads in Original Sin.
Yeah.
He's the big bad in Astonishing Wolverine / Spider-Man. He shows up in his Doctor Strange run. There's a good chance if it's a Marvel book, Orb's probably going to show up.
He'd find a way to do it in a DC book too.
Yeah.
Some kid's just reading a comic book of the Orb.
Yeah, he's reading like one of his creator-owned books, like Southern Bastards or The Goddamned, and like an Eye Man shows up. And it's like, for contractual reasons, this is the Eye. And it's like, oh,
I'm the all-seeing eye. Orb.
we all love the Orb.
Yeah, the Orb's
I mean,
great.
it's a fucking eyeball. It's a buff eyeball,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah.
We all aspire to be the Orb.
Yeah, and the fact that Ghost Rider's buff, but under his jacket there's no muscles. He's a skeleton.
He's
Not like just a flaming head with like a man body.
Yeah.
He's a skeleton that when he puts on a jacket is jacked. But when he takes it off, there's no jacked
That's why
muscles.
they call it a jack-it.
Yeah, I guess.
I'm
Singers.
going. I think I'm gonna tweet Jason Aaron that. Does it bother you that Ghost Rider is jacked, even though he's just a skeleton?
He's just a skeleton. There's no muscle. There's no muscle there.
Yeah. That's.
I
See,
forgot
it's
what
his
issue.
aura that is produced by his body.
I have a Ghost Rider like handbook that tells you about every single issue. That was the last things I bought from the comic shop, and it's just like every fact, every like, so I can like, because I want to own every Ghost Rider comic. That's one of the few characters like I'm fucking doing it. And She-Hulk maybe too, because there's not as much, but like Ghost Rider, definitely those early covers. And I forgot, it's like an
I've
early
got some She-Hulk to give you. Then.
It's like, oh sweet, it's like an early in his like original run. There's an issue where it's like, this is the issue that proves he's just a skeleton under the thing. I was like, I need that comic book.
I just yeah.
Because he's a fit man.
He's a fit
And
skeleton.
Johnny Blaze is fit, you know.
Yeah. So is Danny Ketch.
Which is weird because Danny Ketch, like when he first shows up, is a fucking wuss.
Yeah.
Like he's not jacked at all. His sister gets shot with a fucking bow and arrow. She's bleeding out. He's like, no, and he fucking touches the headlight of a motorcycle, and it's like, guess who's back? But and he fucking blows out a bunch of trash and goes fucking hard. I'm gonna type in orb shirt on eBay.
Tweet that to Jason Aaron because you know he needs it.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Would you sign this for me? Yeah.
Anywho, that's been another installment of Catching Up. I'm Sam.
I'm Chris.
I'm Jake.
Read Ghost Rider comics. The Orb!
Thank you very much.
Good night, Eric Bana.
This has been another Geek Out production. If you enjoyed what you heard, hey, we've got a special episode every Friday. Of course, there's the usual Catching Up show every Wednesday. And you get book club episodes just about every Tuesday these days. Thanks for listening.